So, Rustin is now on Netflix. People, it is directed by Wolfe, written by Julian Breece and Dustin Lance Black. The film is produced by dum, 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 Wolfe, Bruce Cohen, and Tonya Davis. It's executive produced by Barack and Michelle Obama, David Permut, Alex G. Scott, Daniel Sladek, and Chris Taff. Oh, and also Mark R. Wright. Branford Marsalis handles the music. Tobias A. Skilesla was on cinematography, while Andrew Munchine edits the piece. Sherelle Cargill and A.V. Kaufman took care of casting. Mark Richer was production design. Travis Kerr, art direction. Amy Wells, set decoration. And Tony Leslie James, costume design. So, our cast, and what a cast this was. Oh my days. All right, so Bayard Rustin is played by Colman Domingo. Aml Ameen played Martin Luther King Jr. Right, so his wife Coretta Scott King was played by Cara Patterson. We have A. Philip Randolph, played by Glyn Truman. Roy Wilkins is played by Chris Rock. Bayard's friend, secretary, helper, companion, Tom, is played by Gus Halper. Elias Taylor is played by Johnny Rami. Do, 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 do. Hold on. Who is Claudia Taylor? His wife is played by Adrena Warren. We have got Dr. Anna Hedgeman, played by Cece Pounder. Cleve Robinson, played by Michael Potts. Ella Baker, played by Audra McDonald. Adam Clayton Powell, played by Jeffrey Wright. Rochelle, played by Lily Kay. Charlene, played by Jordan Amanda Hall. Norm, played by Jacqueline Powell. Eleanor, played by Anya Workman. Blyden, played by Grantham Coleman. Dory, played by Jamelia Rosmond. Joyce, played by Jules Latimer. John Lewis, played by Maxwell Whittington Cooper. Jim Farmer, played by Frank Hart. Whitney Young, played by Kevin Mambo. Mahala Jackson, played by Divine Joy Randolph. AJ Moost, played by Bill Irwin. Tyrone, played by Jamal Williams. Lucille Randall, played by Hope Clark. Medgar Evers, played by Rashad Demond Edwards. Yeah, that's our main group of people. So the gist of the film. So the powerful true story of Bayard Rustin, the openly gay black civil rights leader who dedicated his life to a quest for racial equality and was the driving force behind the 1963 March on Washington, has now been told. Man, this was crazy, right? And you know, like George C. Wolfe, he directed Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, which, man, that's an awesome film, right? I thought that film was so frigging good. Yeah, and it was just, oh, I was so glad it was good, right? Because it was the last thing that Chadwick Boseman had done. And so you always just, like, you knew he was always, that no one was ever going to say it was bad because it was the last thing Boseman had done. But man, the film was so fucking good. You could not say it was bad. You know what I mean? Right? Whew. He's also done a lot of theater work, you know. I think that's where he got started, you know. Bring the Funk, Bring the Noise, right? The Tempest, Angels in America, and he's done a lot of things, right? Done a lot of things, which is yeah, there's a lot to that. He was also in Garden State. Yeah, he's done a little acting as well, which you know, I do not. I mean, he wasn't a big part in Garden State, but yeah, you know. Uh, and the writer of this film, right? Dustin Lance Black wrote Milk, right? Back in the day, which was another exceptional film. So, you know, there's really steady hands guiding this ship. And it's a story which I don't believe I've come across the name, right? I do not believe I've come across the name Bayard Rustin, which is so fucking crazy. Now, I may have heard the name, but when I say I haven't come across it, I'm saying in weight, right? Where people have eulogized about this man, right? Have held the name up in conversations when we're talking about great people, right? I was gonna say great black people, but there's certain people that I feel, you know what, you don't even put them in racial confines. You just hold them up as great fucking people, right? Malcolm Martin, obviously. Bayard has to be up there too, right? To organize something like that, right? That march, yo. Now, I do actually have the 3 March graphic novels, you know, which John Lewis wrote. I have not got round to reading them yet because my iPad broken and it's just a long thing, people. But so I'm wondering how much of Rustin is in those, because that's about the march, right? But so I'm curious, you know, once I read them, yeah, it'll be interesting. But it's yeah, it's interesting how we don't really know the name, you know? And I think watching this film, I mean, you can understand why we don't know the name. Right? It's one of those shameful things that we do, right? Where if you don't agree with someone, you don't like someone, you try and diminish what they've done, you know, their importance to something, right? The fact that there were people that didn't want the march to happen, and then once it was nearly done, wanted to then take control, right? And remove Rustin from it. And it's a crazy, you know, it's a crazy thing. Now, a lot of this was because he was gay, which, you know, who really gives a fuck, right? Who really gives a fuck, you know? it's that weird thing, you know what I mean? Like, the thing of it's I like this film. I really did. I thought we had some really good performances. Really good performances. And it's crazy. It's freaking crazy how much Colman Domingo actually does look like Bayard Rustin. Now, obviously, it's hair and makeup and all of that, but does look really similar, right? Sometimes with these things, the person doesn't, there's not really a resemblance, right? And you're like, I mean, but yo, this was like, they nailed that casting. I mean, Domingo is a fantastic actor, but yeah, they they nailed that casting as well, man. That was pretty friggin' whoo. That was something. That was something, man. Like, yeah, so we have these fantastic performances. You know what I mean? It's fantastic performances. And there was some of these shots were just great, right? Now, there was things before I get onto the other things I loved about this film. There was things that I didn't quite like. Well, they just frustrated me, and I will say it's not necessarily things that will irritate everyone. It's just one of those artistic things that sometimes bug me, like musical beds and stuff like that. And they use a lot of, and I love jazz, right? But they use a lot of these jazz beds sometimes. And I just, I didn't really know what it was necessarily giving the film, So those frustrated me a little, but yeah, those are the main things, really. Everything else was pretty solid. It was pretty solid. It was kind of this, hmm. It was this kind of big. It was big in these places, these rousing talks, and like Bayard had this big presence. But then there were these moments, right? And this is what I was talking about earlier, these moments that really, and I really enjoyed, right? There was a bit when Bayard and Blythe have got to Washington and they're walking up the steps of the Capitol building, right? So we can see the monument behind them and they're just walking up towards you. And that was a great shot. I really like that shot, right? And it was, it wasn't a film that necessarily dwelt on a lot of the negative shit, right? Obviously, there's the stuff where people are trying to pull Bayard down. But what I mean is, the racism. But when you saw it, god damn, it hits you, right? There's a bit when Bayard is getting on a bus and he recalls an incident he had on a bus, right? So we see him look in a mirror and the reflection is black and white, and then we cut into that scene. Yo, that scene, man, that was just, and it's the words that are said, and I don't mean the racist words, right? He's asked to move, And he's like, if I move, this child next to me will not understand what bias and wrong is taking place. And then you just see, as we cut from what's happening back to the bus, and you have people ignoring, like looking ahead, trying to pretend nothing is going on. But the mother of the child, and you just see the look on her face. And I feel you get that moment of realization. You know, there's another scene where you're seeing people get hosed down, right? Women, children, hosed down. There's a girl walking to school, right? And it's one of those things, you know what I mean, where you're told if women ruled, the world would be a better place. But there's this young black girl walking to school, and just you have all of these women shouting, and you know what they're shouting, but you just see them shouting at her. There's some men there as well, and it's just these moments, and they just hit you and remind you of what this was for, the magnitude of what was happening, you know. And in those moments, right, these moments of just quiet meditation on, you know, the atrocities, the biases, the racism, this film, I thought, really elevated itself, because we see all this other stuff, but then you see why, right? Why? And it's the real crazy thing that I was thinking about when I was watching this film was, oh shit, because you know the march happened, right? You've heard the march, you've read about the march, we've seen other things about the march, but and I've this is the thing, I've organized large events. At no point did I think about the logistics of organizing the march, or who organized that march, right? I don't. Oh, you just think, oh, just people turned up one day, right? Oh, you know what I mean? Like Martin was just like, we're gonna march, and then people turned up. But when you're watching it, the magnitude of this proposition, we just see it all, and how all of these people pull together, regardless of, you know, the fact that I said there's people that didn't want it happening, right? People that did not want it happening, even the NCA, you know, that I get my words. What do you call it? Ah, shit. I can't think. Man, my words and shit are really just going on me, right? Acronyms. Yes, that's the one. Get my acronyms mixed up sometimes. But anyway, like they were against this shit, you know, at the beginning. But we see all of these people pulling together, doing their thing to organize it, right? Just the training of the guardians, which, yeah, like you as you watch it, you're like, oh, obviously that had to have happened. Man, I never thought of that. So I think shining this kind of spotlight on Rustin and these events and the other people that were there to make it happen was important and just really well handled. They say in a lot of the press for this that he was not afraid to be who he was, right? Never shied away from it. I don't know how true that is, right? Because we do see moments where he's like turning off radios and things like that. But that's fine, right? Because even the bravest of us aren't brave 24/7, right? Everyone's got moments when there is fear, when there is worry, anxiety, right? There's moments when you do things, right, that like mess around with married men. You know what I mean? There's times you do things that aren't the best, but that's fine too. Now, it's not fine to do those things, but I feel it is important to show those things. So I was happy that we saw all of this stuff because it doesn't take away from the thing. Everyone's got flaws, everyone does certain things which, in hindsight, you may regret, right? And when I say things, as I said, I ain't talking about him being gay. I'm talking about him messing with a married man, right? Now, in an ideal world, you're not doing that. You're just messing with single people. You know what I mean? But I think it's important to see it all, right? Because you see, even when people do certain things, it doesn't take away from anything else, right? And the fact that he put himself in a position where people would come at him, right? Would come to try and tear him down, but he still stood. He still stood tall. He still stood for the things that were important. And that's a story that people need to see, because it's a crazy world we live in. And I think we sometimes need these kind of reminders that people need to make a stand, and it takes more than one person to pull off monumental things. You know what I mean? So yeah, I enjoyed this film. And Lenny Kravitz does the credit song, right? Which I think Road to Freedom. It's a great song. Trombone Shorty plays on it. It's a great fucking song. I was like, yo, I heard the song, added it to my iTunes library straight, sent it to my girl. It's a great song, So yeah, like if you like these kind of stories, you know what I mean? Things that show history, things that show people making a stand, not taking that step backwards. If those are the stories that you enjoy, then I highly recommend checking out Rustin. It's not perfect, people. It's not perfect, but god damn, it hits you. It hits you. And I think that's, you've watched something when you have those feelings, You know what I mean? When you feel that emotional weight. So yeah, this Rustin, it's on Netflix, and you know what I mean? It's like, and it's not if you like, black films, right? You watch Selma, you know what I mean? You watch Hidden Numbers, you watch Malcolm, you watch, you know what I mean? Like, yo, it's just if you like great storytelling, if you like stories of people doing exceptional things, then Rustin is the film for you.